Right, so welcome to Enhanced Prep's personal statement workshop. And we have a few people joining. Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. All right, we're just gonna give it a few more minutes while we have some more attendees joining. And we'll jump right in. Feel free to ask any questions. We'll also save some time towards the end as well. All right, welcome, welcome. We're gonna get started in just a moment. Alrighty. So I know we'll probably have some more people join. We're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you so much for joining our personal statement workshop brought to you by Enhanced Prep. My name is Olga, and just to give you a bit more background on myself, I have over 7 years of professional tutoring experience, including personal statement support and admission support with essays. I also have some experience as a New York City classroom teacher with reading. I have some experience as a nonprofit mentoring coordinator, mentorship. And in terms of my educational background, I earned my bachelor's in English language and literature from NYU and my master's in teaching English from the Teachers College at Columbia. In terms of some of my passions, I love food, dogs, and fitness, especially boxing. So I'll show you how to fight back against any stress that you have with this personal statement. So whether you feel like this while writing, or like this is my doggy, by the way, his name is Titan. Either way, we got your back. So here's the agenda. We'll review every stage of writing and will help set you up for success. And I'm gonna really emphasize that word stage. Writing is a process. We are not gonna sit down and just write this in one sitting and have the perfect piece of writing. And if you're that person who, before you type a word, you wanna make sure it's the perfect word, it's the perfect phrase, you're gonna have to let that go. And I struggle with this myself sometimes. You have to be comfortable with that rough draft being rough. That way you don't get stuck with writer's block. We'll also provide some resources to help improve your writing overall and increase your comfort and confidence. So what you will learn today will help you with the personal statement as well as any writing that you tackle. So let's talk about the goal of this personal statement. What you really, really want to do is instead of telling, you want to show. So if you have a passion, instead of saying, I really love doing this, show how much you love it. Maybe there's a certain level of dedication that you can talk about. So that brings me to the next point. Instead of just saying what you did, talk about how you did it, because your personal statement is all about telling a story. We'll get into that in a little bit. And in that story, you want to show just how awesome you are. It's about your likability, right? We want these admissions people to fall in love with your story and say yes. It's less about your status. Yes, of course, you can brag, but you have the rest of the application to do that. Your personal statement should give information that they can't find anywhere else. And the other part is think about what makes you unique, right? The diversity that you bring. What is unique about your experience? So let's talk about what the essay is not, because there's a lot of misconceptions around this. It is most certainly not a resume. There are plenty of places in that application where you will list your accomplishments and you essentially will provide a resume. So we don't want to do that again, right? Your personal statement is supposed to be very special and unique in the information it provides. And this is not exactly an opportunity to educate readers. So these next 2 points kind of go hand in hand. You want to really avoid doing a 5 paragraph academic essay. That's not what this is. And if your language is too formal, now you're pivoting away from that personal perspective because academic tends to be a bit less personal. We don't need to be formal. We can still use strong vocabulary and show off vocab, but we don't want every single sentence to sound like that. And you're just doing too much. Let your natural voice shine, and you can include some higher level vocab along the way, but that comes later in the more final stages. The other thing we want to avoid here is an explanation or any excuses about other application components. Like let's say freshman year was rough and it brought your GPA down. There is usually a part of the application that tells you or allows you to explain what happened. This is not the time to do it. This is the time to share your story in a way that helps you shine. It's also, I say this with love, not your parents' ideas of what you should be writing. Again, like I said, I say it with love. Your parents want the best for you. However, when we think of strong writing, sometimes parents think about overly academic, formal, straightforward, concise writing. And yes, overall, we do want to be concise here and there, but this type of writing is creative writing. It's storytelling, and it's not going to look like any of the essays that you write in school unless your teachers regularly ask you to write about yourself, which I know is not really the case. There are opportunities usually, but overall, if you think about what students are writing, it's probably an analysis of theme, right? In a novel or a play. It's about someone else outside of you, not all about you. That's why initially this feels a little bit rough, but I promise I got your back. We'll go through it step by step. The other part of this, we don't want to say just what colleges want to hear because they can tell if you're not being genuine, if you're saying things just to say them, like you're going to join this group or you're going to do this thing. You have to make sure that you are telling your authentic story, right? Let your true voice shine. So it's not what colleges want to hear. We're going to do that indirectly because you're going to show them how awesome you are and you're the exact type of student they want to say yes to. So, in terms of what it is, I've mentioned this before in terms of that first point. This essay needs to be really special and say something that they can't find anywhere else, right? Personal statement. It's showing who you are outside of your resume. It's no longer quantitative either. Think about how much of your application is about numbers. You can integrate numbers on this, but that's not really the main goal. This is more about your character, your values, your voice. Who are you outside of those numbers? And these are the most valuable 5 minutes you're going to have with an admissions officer, right? So also keep that in mind as you write. And as you're writing, you want to think, okay, does this help my story? Or is it kind of pivoting and taking away from my story? And going back to the previous slide about this not being really academic, it's your time to get a bit more real. We have to take that distance away and really share who you are, which is far easier said than done. It is a vulnerable thing to do for sure. So I want to recognize that. Now, here are some of the Common App prompts, and some students may also apply through the Coalition app, which has different prompts. If you're applying to the UCs, they have their personal insight questions. And most of the times, a lot of schools have supplementals, so you just want to be careful, make sure that you are submitting all the necessary writing. Most schools, a lot of schools, will allow you to pick any one of these 7 prompts. So let's discuss and analyze these. Number 1 says, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful. They believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story, right? Your story. So this is where you have to show your passion. If there's something you really, really deeply love, number 1, there could be a great option, right? Background, identity, interest, talent. It's meaningful. So you have to talk about why it's meaningful and how it's meaningful. Because if they say yes to a student, they want that student to be full of passion and to be pursuing their passion, taking that initiative, right? This is how we tell colleges what they want to hear, but in a more impactful, powerful way. Then prompt number 2 here. This is so important because I feel like a lot of students have a misconception about discussing challenges. So number 2 says the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or a failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? So there is room to discuss any struggles, right? Challenge, setback, failure, but that can't be the star of the show. You're going to bring it up in the beginning, but here's what they really, really, really are looking for. How did it affect you? And what did you learn from the experience? So the fact that they say, what did you learn, tells us everything we need to know. They are looking for growth. They are looking for resilience with question number 2, because if they say yes to a student, well, that freshman year can be quite challenging, intimidating. College in general will provide you with plenty of challenges. They want to say yes to a student who has the resilience, who can show that, and who basically shows that they can grow from those challenges. So, like I said, you could bring it up here, but make sure you talk about it briefly in the beginning. And then the star of the show is your growth. How did you push past? How did you gain resilience from that situation? Right, then three, reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? So, with this one, if you've ever changed your mind about something that's really important to you, this is a great option. And again, I think this goes back to growth, right? They want to know more about your growth in ways that they can't see on other parts of that application. So, questioning or challenging a belief, what prompted that? What was the outcome? So, another question about growth. Number four, reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? I feel like, again, this is about growth, right? Because if you're able to reflect, if you're able to show gratitude and then let it motivate you, they love to know that, right? Because these are all positive traits that they want in the students they say yes to. And there's so much you can do with question number four. Number five, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of, there's that word, personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. So five is somewhat related to three in that sense, right? Like you're changing your mind, period of personal growth, new understanding. A lot of these prompts are all about being able to reflect on your experiences. So sparked a period of personal growth, new understanding yourself or others. Now, number six is somewhat similar to number one there. Okay. So six says, describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So now it's going back to your passions. What do you love? And not only what do you love, right? Because if you can lose all track of time doing that, mm, what initiative are you taking to learn more? They love students who are curious, who want to learn more and don't just wait for those opportunities. They take them, right? They take the initiative to learn more. And why does it captivate you? Again, why do you care about this? They want to know about your passions. So it's really important that you let those passions shine. And along those lines, when you're thinking about what you want to pick, be true to what you care about, right? If you're really, really passionate about something, go with that. But if you're like, I don't know if this one really speaks to me, don't push it. Pick the one that genuinely speaks to you and you're going to actually enjoy writing because when you can enjoy what you write about, that comes through in your writing. Now, number seven is like, listen, kid, just pick something. Seven says, share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. I've noticed that a lot of students who pick number seven end up unintentionally doing some one of the prompts in 1 through 6. I would not recommend submitting something you've already written unless you rewrite it. And it's going to be kind of hard to make that essay really show what you care about unless it's already doing that. And if you're going to respond to a different prompt, be mindful of the prompt that you're responding to and that it's still basically hitting the key points that these other prompts are getting at, one of your own design. I'm just going to say be careful with number seven. It can't be done very well, but make sure seven is more of like a last resort as opposed to like, yes, let me just pick something that's not on here. Only do that if that thing like really speaks to you and you can show your passion, your curiosity, your resilience, or your growth. Right, let's keep going. We'll have some time at the end, by the way, to ask any questions at all. Now, the topic. There's a few key components to keep in mind here. And the more time you take to choose the right topic, the better your essay will be. So that doesn't mean like take all year, but you don't have to decide in the moment if it's not really speaking to you yet, right? Think about this because the pre-writing, the planning part of writing is one of the most important parts in that process. So you can talk about the weird factor. So we had a tutor who wrote about her queasiness in bio. So anything that makes you unique, anything that no matter how weird it is, you can spin it in a certain way. And if it shows who you are, if it shows some vulnerability, but also growth, they're going to like that. As long as you're honest, right? Be authentic, show your perspective, show your passion, be vulnerable. And this is not an easy thing to do, right? It's going to take some time, but you will get there. Just push through, show your growth, show your change. You can show your challenges, but if you do that, make sure it always goes back to growth and change. How did that challenge help you get even stronger? Now, in case you're like, but how do I know if it's actually the right choice? Well, here are some guiding questions, right? So, does it allow me to say something the rest of my application does not? If it's very repetitive in terms of what you've already mentioned, well, they're not really getting much out of that personal statement. And the personal statement means a lot in terms of admissions. The other part here is, well, talking about this topic demonstrate my character, values, and or voice, right? Does it really show them what I care about, who I am? So always keep that in mind. And in terms of this topic, will it result in an honest essay? When it's not authentic, it's seen, it's felt in your writing, and it's also not going to be pleasant to write. So if you're already not a fan of writing and you pick something that's not super authentic to your experience and your story, it's going to be that much more painful. Then the next question here, will this topic give a reader a greater sense of who I am as a person? Right, again, let's go outside of those quantitative measures, all those numbers that they look at. Those numbers do tell them something, but not the full story. So this is your chance to show them the full story of who you are. And you're so much more than those numbers. So greater sense of who I am as a person. And I kind of hinted at this before. Will I enjoy writing it for the most part? And based on my background, you can imagine that I like writing, but I'll be honest with you, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. I've gotten stuck and it's so frustrating where I'm like, I know what I want to say. I don't know how to say it. It can get stressful. So I'll show you some ways to avoid that stress. And as long as you pick a topic that you're passionate about, it's going to be more enjoyable. Right now, I've mentioned the writing process before. It's so important to keep that word in mind. Process. We are not going to sit down and go straight into writing, and then we have a teacher look at it, and then we do a few corrections and we send it off. That is not going to set you up for success. So let's take a moment to discuss the writing process. And this is what happens when you have an English teacher walk you through this statement. It has to be discussed. So first up is pre-writing. We don't want to just jump straight into this draft. It's really important to brainstorm. You want to outline. And also because this is creative writing, I have some creative writing prompts that I'm going to share in case you're like, I don't know how to write like this. I have never had to in school. It doesn't come naturally. That's okay. A few things that you can do. Let me just give you a quick prompt so that you can try this out on your own. Mm-mm-mm. So one thing that a lot of my students really like is writing a letter to your younger self, updating and celebrating yourself. So basically tell your younger self what you accomplished. It's a way to think about and reflect about yourself, and it can be really powerful. And no one has to read this, right? Like this is just for you so you can get into the habit of writing more freely. Another option you can do is to write a letter to your current self from the perspective of your college self. And you can do both of these if they speak to you. So think about your point of view. You're about to graduate college, right? Think about the things that you want to accomplish, but speak to your current self as if those things were accomplished. What did you experience? So this is where you get to discuss kind of like your hopes, your dreams, your goals. And again, you're doing it in a situation with less stakes. This whole application process is very much about high stakes, and it can put a lot of pressure on you. And when there's that pressure, it makes it that much harder to write in an impactful way. So if you try out these creative writing prompts and just kind of practice writing outside of this essay, it'll make you stronger in general. If you're always used to only writing for a grade, for college admissions, that's going to impact your relationship to writing. Like, I love hanging out with my best friend and watching trashy reality TV. But if I was being evaluated every time I did that, I probably wouldn't enjoy that anymore. Right? So you have to write outside of your essays in school. You have to write a bit outside of this college personal statement essay. The more you write in different ways, the stronger you'll be as a writer. Okay, so brainstorm, outline, practice a little bit of the creative writing, especially if you feel like you're stuck. Then we can get into the drafting phase. And it's going to be rough, like rough. Then you're going to revise a bit more, and then it'll still be a little rough. And then maybe it'll still be a little less rough slash getting better. It's going to take some phases. This is not going to be a quick process. You could get it done relatively quickly depending on how much you dedicate each day. But the key here is be comfortable with that first draft being something you don't like. I'm not even gonna lie to you, I struggle with this myself. Like, I preach this all the time, and then I'll be writing something, and I literally want it to be perfection the second that my fingertips touch the keyboard. And then I have to remind myself, Olga, relax, just get it out, and then we can adjust. Because the more you're like, no, it has to be perfect, that's when you get stuck. That's when your voice is not gonna shine the same way. And that's also why you do want to get started with this sooner rather than later so that you can comfortably make it gradually less rough. And what you're going to be doing after you draft, it's going to be revision first. So revision is all about the way you communicate ideas. Don't worry about punctuation, don't worry about grammar, because if you hate the way a sentence sounds and you rewrite it, well, there's no point in changing where the comma's at, right? Because that whole sentence may go. That's why you want to take a look at your sentences and say, do I like the way this sounds? Is this clear? Am I communicating what I want to communicate? That's revision. And that's going to go into your drafting phase, right? So as you improve that draft, you're revising. And this is not necessarily going to go in a linear fashion. Sometimes you have to go back and maybe add something to your outline. That's okay. But the final step is going to be editing. This is where you think about grammar, punctuation, because overall, your ideas are set, your sentences are basically done. You just have to make sure that the grammar, the punctuation is all where it needs to be, spelling, things like that, right? Okay. So let's talk about those drafts a bit more. Someone hinted at the value of them before. Just gonna put this to the side here. Do, 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 do. Okay, there we go. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just push this over here. Okay, so in terms of the value of drafts, I kind of already mentioned it's tough to start. The magic is not going to be in the beginning. It's going to feel a little bit rough, but that's okay. Just get something down, right? Because that's your foundation. Just get it out. What do I want to say? Let me just get it out like if I'm talking to my best friend. As I've spelled out here, it's an ongoing revision process, right? It is a process. I know I'm being super repetitive with that, but this is the part that always gets lost with students. And even if it's just a word here or there, right, those little improvements are going to be really important. And then over here, you're going to start with telling, start with that, right? Just give the what. Don't worry about the how. You're going to go from telling, or you're going to go from the tell to the show. We're not going to go straight into the show. If you do, great. If not, don't put that pressure on yourself. Like, be kind to yourself through this process because it is a lot. All right, so just to recap, you want to start with your pre-writing phase, brainstorm, get an outline going. You can even talk to any friends, talk it out. Then the draft. As you finish that draft, you're going to go through more drafting, which means more revisions. Then finally editing. So as I mentioned before, the pre-writing phase, that outline is everything. I'm gonna be very honest. I don't think I really outlined essays in high school. I definitely procrastinated till the last minute and then wrote them in a panic. while I was stressed, which is not ideal. Then when I got to college, I saw how unsustainable that is real quick. And I had a professor's assistant talk to me about outlining, and it changed up my writing entirely. You need a roadmap. You need to figure out, where do I start? Where am I going to end up? And your outline might change. That's okay. But you need to know overall, what am I going to say? So keep your reader in mind. This is so important, not just for this essay, for any essay. Think about, okay, what does the reader need to get out of my writing? So if it's an essay for high school or when you get to college, think about, okay, what is my professor looking for? And always keep the reader in mind. As you write, write a sentence, you can ask yourself, is the sentence too long? Is the reader going to lose something? Okay, I've been talking too much, clearly. All right, just give me just one moment.
Keep in mind, everyone, if you have any questions, you feel free to put them in chat and we will read them and answer them as we move through the session.
All right, thank you, Breneya. Appreciate you. All right. I will get my voice back, I promise. All right. So figure out where you want to start, figure out where you'd like to end up. Your job is to be a storyteller, but you can only do that in 650 words. And those 650 may feel intimidating at first. You'll be surprised how quickly you'll get there. So you're a storyteller, don't worry about being formal. You're just letting it out like if you're catching a friend up on a story. And it's an ongoing revision process. That's okay, right? So like I said, it's going to come out however it comes out at first, and then it's going to keep getting better and better and better. You start with the telling, then you end up showing. So start out with the what. What happened? What do I love? What did I grow from? Then you'll adjust it little by little in terms of, wait, how did this happen though? How can I show that I love this? How can I show that I grew from this? All right. So now let's discuss the sample structure here. The intro is that something happened. So if you go with the prompt about challenges, you can introduce the challenge. Then the heart of the essay, those body paragraphs, are all about your response, right? So what did you do? Then the conclusion is all about the growth that came from that response. And if initially maybe the response was to struggle a bit, or maybe it was hard to get used to a new situation, that's okay, as long as you talk about, first I struggled with it, then I learned to do this thing, then I reached out to this person. At the very end, you're talking about what it taught you, right? Going back to growth. They want to know, what did you get out of this experience? Because if we spend the whole time just talking about the struggles, they're not going to see the resilience that got you to the point of applying to college. Because if you weren't resilient, it would be harder to get to that point. And this is not to say that those challenges don't matter. They absolutely do. But for this essay in particular, they can't be the main topic. They're going to be the introductory topic. And you also want to show them, where are you at now? Because the person who experienced that struggle a while back is not the same person who's writing this essay, right? We are changing all the time. That's just what it's like being human. All right. So now let's get into the intro paragraph. Not every college essay is going to be structured the same exact way. So this is just general advice. You'll feel it out as you draft. You might change up the intro a bit, but you still want it to hook the reader in, right? Because the first few sentences are going to set the tone. And think about how many essays these admissions officers are reading. You want something that's going to stand out and be different. So you still want a hook, but not exactly like English class. You can think of this acronym here, IDEA. You want it to be intriguing. So let's say you're talking about a challenge, don't mention it in the first sentence, maybe build up to that. You want it to be descriptive, which it may not start that way, right? And then you can move from telling to showing. And typically, you want some emotion in it because it's a personal statement. They want to know your personal connection to this moment. And overall, if you think about those prompts, there's room for it to get emotional in a sense because you're talking about what you love. You're talking about any challenges you've been through. And you want to do that in a really authentic way. I know we mentioned that before, but it really is so important that you are true to your story, true to your voice, because your story deserves that, right? Now, typically, you're going to use this through narrative. So you're telling a story. Typically, that's done in narrative form. And you can also use concise to the point statements, but I wouldn't recommend every sentence to be to the point. You can have a balance of the two. Strong writing has variety. So let's say you write a super long sentence. In general, try to avoid that. But let's say it's a little bit on the longer side, but it's clear. Every word serves a purpose. There's nothing that's redundant. Well, in the next sentence, make it super short because from a reader's perspective, that gives your reader a bit of a break, a pause, and they can better digest what you just said. And what I see all the time with students is discomfort with writing short sentences because your English teachers are typically not a fan of those, but it's all about balance. If you have a few really short sentences, they can be so impactful depending on where you use them and how you use them. So don't be afraid to be concise or use less words. In general, you also want to avoid being redundant. So each word should serve a unique purpose. And that 650 word limit will force you to get very selective about which words serve a purpose versus which ones don't actually need to be there. But that's where the revision stage comes into play. Don't stress that. All right, now the body paragraphs here. This is where the reader needs to feel like they know you, right? So you're kind of telling them more about yourself. And like I mentioned, it is a vulnerable thing to do. It should feel like you just shared a secret. The reader's kind of joining in on the experience. So think about the way that you would update a close friend. It's like that, probably different language than you would use, but still there's that closeness. Right? And there's going to be active descriptions. So really write things out in terms of how can I truly help the reader imagine this vividly, right? Vivid writing is really strong writing. And introspection, a lot of those prompts want you to reflect on your life, right? Reflect on what you love, reflect on what you've been through. So make sure that that's happening throughout your writing. And typically, you want to establish some type of conflict, a challenge, something like that. If you feel like you're not quite finding that, just make sure that you are hitting the other points and that you're showing them, like, let's say you're talking about your passion, there's no challenge there. Okay. Talk about what makes it your passion, how you've pursued it so that they can see some type of curiosity and your initiative to learn. And that last paragraph, they're going to remember this quite a bit. So typically, this is the most challenging. I want to recognize that, but it's also the most important. No pressure. But again, that's why when we write that first draft, we're just going to get it out. And through the multiple revisions, we're going to make the whole essay, especially that ending, impactful and powerful. You want to make sure that your perspective throughout, but especially in the last paragraph, the concluding paragraph, your perspective should be clear, precise, and concise. So we're going to avoid maybe too many generalizations there. You want to make sure that your reader can get through the sentence without saying, wait, what's the main thing that the student's trying to tell me? It should be clear. And concise goes back to every word is serving a unique purpose. I don't have words here that don't really need to be here. And overall, that is strong writing. You really do want to make sure that each word is adding to the idea and not distracting from it. And then you're emphasizing the how. This is not the laundry list of the what, like what you did, for example. You're going to talk about the how. And this last point, add humor if you'd like. This is not mandatory. There are some topics where there's not much room for that. And if it does not come to you naturally, do not force it. I enjoy a dad joke quite heavily. I love dad jokes, but if it's gonna come off like that, that may not be the most ideal. It depends. It depends. Their dad jokes can be done skillfully. But again, what I'm saying by that is don't try to add it in just for the sake of adding it in. If that's how you write, if you're used to using humor, go for it. If it comes to you naturally, go for it. Do not force it because this is not going to make or break your essay. It could be a nice highlight only if it comes naturally, right? Going back to being authentic. All right, so here is the timeline and kind of like what I referenced before with the process. Here is our pre-writing stage. We brainstorm, we outline. And I actually have a brainstorming worksheet that I'm going to send out in the chat, and that way it can help guide you through. We're going to take a look at that in just a moment. Then you have your first draft, and whew, it is rough, and that's okay. We're going to embrace that. Then you revise and revise and revise and revise. Then you get to your final draft when you incorporate that editing in terms of punctuation, all that good stuff. So because it is a process, we want to start writing early, right? The more time you have, the better off you'll be. Like, yes, did I get my essays done in high school in time? Technically, yes. And overall, my grades were solid. But I could have done so much better. And I also didn't need all that stress, right? Don't put yourself in a stressful situation. Start writing early. Even if it means, you know what, I'm just going to brainstorm today. I have no idea yet, but let me use this brainstorming worksheet to at least get started. If you're applying early action, early decision, you especially need to get started because you also want to have some time for others to review your work and you want to give them time to review it, right? So let's say you want your English teacher to take a look at it. Well, start of the year, she's going to have a lot on her plate. So you want to make sure you're giving your teachers enough time or whoever you want to read it, give them enough time to do so. So speaking of, you want three different kinds of readers. One is the casual acquaintance, someone who does not know you that well. And for this casual acquaintance, their job is to ensure the essay captures and holds attention and is memorable. They're not really paying attention to like grammar, technical stuff. They're just like, okay, is this interesting? Is this memorable? Then you'll want the grammar expert. So this person has the knowledge and they're comfortable with editing. Their job, they're going to catch those technical errors. They're going to improve structure. So this is a little bit more editing heavy. We're getting into the technicalities of grammar. Now, you want a close friend or family member who is not too emotionally invested in where you get accepted, which I know can be tough when we're talking about friends or family. But ideally, this person is just happy that you're going to go to the school you want to go to. Their job is going to be to read for an accurate representation of the spirit of who you are, the authentic character of who you are. So this person should know you, right? They should know you because that's how they're going to see, is this really you? Does that shine? Right? So we're looking for it being memorable, attention grabbing. We're making sure that it's truly reflecting who you are. And we're making sure that technical errors are not present, that in terms of the grammar, the punctuation, all of that's on point. Now, here are some reminders. Not all colleges have only one person who's reviewing the entire admissions packet. Usually, 5 minutes on the essay is considered generous. Like if an admissions officer spends 5 minutes, that's on the generous side, which I know can be like, oh, I'm going to spend all this time and then they're only going to give me 5 minutes. But you have to think realistically about what this process looks like on their side, right? If we think about UCLA, for example, if they have 137,000 applicants and a 14% admission rate, right? Think about reading 137,000 essays. So that's why you want to make sure that you're standing out. And I know that they may not spend a lot of time on it, but it does have a big impact. So all the time you put in, it will be worth it, trust me. And something else just really quick, supplemental essays, keep those in mind. You want to make sure that the supplementals are saying something different than your personal statement as well. We don't want to just like copy and paste so that the college admissions officers are reading the same thing twice. All right, so next steps. This can be fun, it can be exciting. It's never too early to start, especially with brainstorming. So I'm going to send along this brainstorming worksheet and walk you through it. We can also send out the PDF if needed. Just drop that into our chat here. Okay, and we can definitely send this out as well. So here is the brainstorming worksheet. Since we're not used to necessarily writing about ourselves in school, this allows you to do so in a less high-stakes situation. So you want to start out thinking about the 10 adjectives that describe you. This can be tough to do, but sit there, think it through. You can even ask friends how they would describe you. Then you're going to narrow them down to a top 5. Then from the 5, choose 3. So think about the 3 that are like, this is at the heart of who I am. Like, if it wasn't for these 3, you can't describe me, right? Then you can think about life experiences and or challenges that you had that exemplify these adjectives. Write down anything that comes to mind. And with pre-writing this, like planning time, this outlining, brainstorming, you don't have to write complete sentences. You could do bullet points, right? This is just to get you thinking. Then from that list of experiences or challenges, you're gonna take one of them, just one, the one that you can probably say the most about, and think about how does that experience or how does that challenge really show, exemplify a specific character trait, belief, and or perspective that you have. And you can repeat that question for several ideas, right? If you're like, you know what, I'm really stuck between these 2 experiences. Well, that's okay, write about both. That is okay. And again, you're not writing these full complete sentences. You're not writing essays here. You're just kind of getting stuff down. Then here's the part that they're always interested in knowing. What did you learn? How did you grow? Show the resilience, show the self-reflection. And then how has this challenge influenced other areas of your life? Think about that. Some other questions for exploration. You can think, okay, what's weird about you? And we say weird in a loving way. What makes you unique? What captivates you? What do you love? Going back to that question about what you lose track of time doing. And then here's another one that really gets at what you care about. If you have $1,000 to donate, what would you do and why? Who's that money going to or where and why? So this gets at like your character. What do you care about? Then here's another one. What wakes you up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night? So that can definitely be a self-reflective one for sure. And you don't have to do every single question. These are just other questions to explore. But the more that you write and respond to these kinds of questions, the stronger you'll be with creative writing and writing in general. And think, is there a recurring theme to what you daydream about, right? Like, so maybe how do you imagine your future? What are those goals? Then what is your favorite word and why? If you don't have one, that's okay. If you want to research one, that's also okay. Then think about this next question in terms of there's the transcript, there's the resume, there's the recommendation letters. What does your entire college application not say about you? What does it leave out? Because there's so much to you that that application is not going to capture everything, right? So, of all the ideas you've brainstormed in this worksheet, think about what excites you the most. What do you really want to write about, even if you're not a fan of writing? So, I'm going to show you an example with mine real quick. So here are some of the characteristics that I've described about myself. I narrowed it down to these 3: creative, passionate, hardworking. I feel like they really get to the heart of who I am. In terms of some of my experiences, I was earning my master's degree while juggling 2 jobs on the side. And as a teacher in the Bronx, I had 230 students and 460 grades to enter per week. And I can talk about even through that, like that's the hard work. I can talk about the creativity that I put into my lessons, like incorporating music and spoken word. I can bring in my passion about teaching. So that's where I'm basically discussing the how, right? The hard work, I can talk about the amount of hours. Feel free to use numbers, by the way. You can use numbers, italics. Get creative in how you write this, because the more you aesthetically stand out, the better off you'll be. So if you want to emphasize something, use those italics. That's okay. Put things in bold. That's okay. And then for the creativity, I can show an example of a fun lesson. In terms of what to learn, well, managing my time better, which is really fun when you also have ADHD, and learning how to adjust because that situation is all about adjusting, right? Whether you're a student or a teacher, I feel like you're constantly pivoting. And then in terms of how it influenced me in other areas of my life, because what we go through in one area of our lives, it's always going to be reflected in the other parts. So I feel like it increased my confidence. And then it actually made me a stronger tutor. Like I noticed that my tutoring game changed completely when I was in the classroom and after. I didn't get to these, but this is something that you can work on your own and take your time. All right. So let's head over some free writing resources that I want to share. So I mentioned before, that's how you improve your writing skills and how you view yourself as a writer. If we're always writing with high stakes, we're going to have less of a positive relationship to writing. We need to write in several different occasions. We need to write in low stakes, and we need to write different types of writing. That's why this personal statement is tricky, because we're always in school typically writing the same academic essay. So then when we have to pivot towards creative writing, we're like, wait, how do I do this? The more you do different types of writing, the stronger you'll be as a writer in general. So what you can do is free write. What this means is you can pick a prompt or you can write about literally anything you want. Set a timer for 3 or 4 minutes. If that feels like too much, start out with two, start out with one. That's okay. But as soon as that timer starts, you're gonna write nonstop. Even if you're saying, I don't know what to write next, I don't know what to write next. That is okay. This is going to help you just get stuff out, right? Without thinking, wait, is this how I want to say it? But what if this? But without the overthinking, right? You're just getting it out. We don't care about grammar. We don't care about how it flows. None of that. Even if it's one sentence the whole time, it doesn't matter. The key is that you're just writing without all of the overthinking that happens, especially with an essay like the personal statement that carries so much weight. So I mentioned before my prompt recommendations. So you can write a letter to your past self, right? Celebrate yourself. Let your past self know everything you've accomplished up until where you're at now in high school. Or write from the perspective of your college self about to graduate. And again, continue celebrating yourself. Talk about what you accomplished in college. It's going to get at the heart of what you care about and why you're applying in the first place, right? And if you have already graduated college and you're looking for graduate personal statement support, you can still write this, right? You can still write to your past self. You can still write as someone who has already earned that master's or doctorate degree, right? From that future self to your current self. And there's also a whole bunch of different prompts that you can try out. So there's actually this right here, New York Times has over 1,000 prompts for students. And if you just search up creative writing prompts, you'll find so many. You'll definitely find one that speaks to you. All right, so now that we have gone through all of the key stages, the resources, the tips, we have some time to answer questions. And I have Breneya Johnson here to help out. She has over a decade of experience with college essay support and admissions essay support.
And if you have no questions, you are definitely free to go.
Take a few more minutes. Oh,
By the way, great job, Olga. It was nice.
oh, actually, we
Mhm.
do have a question. How short is too
Too
short
short
word-wise?
word-wise. Like 600 words is too little.
Because if 650 is the max, 600 is close to that. What would you say, Brene?
It definitely depends on the essay. So, you fully want to answer the question. Do not feel like, oh, I need to be super brief here. Like fully answer it. And if you have extra words, like get fly with the, if you have extra words to spare, get fly with your writing, right? Um, vary up your sentence structure, add cool words or add an anecdote or add some kind of rhetorical devices in your writing to make it interesting to read. Like Olga was saying earlier, you don't know who's reading your essay and they're reading a lot of them. How are you going to make your essay stand out? So if you have extra words, like try to do something cool with your essay. Don't just be like, cool, I answer the question and be dry with it.
Right?
Is it okay to use contractions? Doesn't have to be formal.
I wouldn't stress, maybe not like the whole time through, but it's okay. They're not going to be like, oh, wow, you use the contraction. Oh, you use the I pronoun. Get this essay out of here. Like, it's okay. Like you said, it doesn't have to be formal.
Yeah, and especially if you're running out of words, like definitely shorten some of these. Use your contractions.
Yes. Good questions.
What about talking about overcoming mental health issues? What say you, Olga?
So this one I think can be impactful as long as you are focusing on overcoming them, right? Like, yes, bring them up, but make sure that you're showing them what specific steps you took to overcome them, because where you want to end up is the place of like the resilience. That's what they want to see.
And follow-up question, Olga, would if you were writing the essay, and you wanted, your mental health had a huge impact on your academic journey, would you statement or would you leave that for a supplemental essay?
That might be better in a supplemental because you can still talk about it, especially mental health impacts everything, right?
For sure.
So if it impacted your grades, that may be a better place to talk about that.
Great questions, everyone.
Yes.
What about the why us essay? What about it?
Ooh, like how to
What do
approach
you
that
think?
one. Okay. So that one, the spotlight is a little bit more on the college, but not entirely. Like they know, all their flexes, they're aware. So don't worry about citing all of the statistics. They're actually used to students writing that. But you want to get specific, right? And you want to show how that college and you're the perfect match. There's no better match out there. So in order to do that, you do have to get specific. Like you can talk about maybe specific programs, but your goal is to make sure the college understands you didn't just copy and paste this over to the other schools and just change up the name of the school. That's what has to be very clear. So whatever
Yeah.
you write has to be something you can't just copy and paste over and change up the names. It's something that would take significant revision to work for another school.
And if you can connect it to like, if you wrote an essay talking about like what you're passionate about, right? Connect it to that passion and say, you guys have this really great program or co-op or club or organization, and I want to bring my passions to this, right? Or this really speaks to me in a certain way, right? So you really want to make sure that your essay, your whole application is cohesive and holistic and that everything is connecting, right? So that they can see like big picture, the student is perfect for our school. And not that you're just applying just because it's on your list.
Oh, and one more thing about the why us. You don't have to get too formal with that one, but um, the thing is with that, you don't typically have the room to do as much storytelling either. They're far shorter, so just keep that in mind. You're not overly formal, but we're also not doing the same storytelling we did before in the personal statement. I see, I like the weather at the place though. That's important. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I would frame it in terms of like I like the community on campus and off campus, like something like that, right? So where you're like, not only do I really love this school, but like where it's situated really fits, what I'm looking for. You can definitely do a hook if you want to, but it kind of depends on you and how much words you have left. But you don't need one. You like this one is like like give them a straight answer.
Yeah. Yeah. If no hook comes to you naturally, don't worry about it. And
Mhm.
just get it down. If you want to add a hook in, cool, but don't worry about it. Yes.
Yes, for sure. That is definitely okay.
Because usually the amount of words they allow you is far less than 650, right? Like maybe 200, if not.
100?
I've seen, I think, maybe 100 or 150. So when
Mm,
they tell you that amount, they want you to get to the
wrap
point.
it up. Yeah.
Hmm,
Mm.
that's a good one. What
Ooh,
about the
that
book
is a
essay?
great question.
What book inspired you? I think you're probably still getting to the point, but if we're talking about a book inspiring you, you're going to let your passion out. So you don't have to get super creative, but you definitely shouldn't be formal.
Oh,
Mm,
and this is even if you're not a reader, this is still a question that there's Spark Notes, there are YouTube video, breakdowns of books. Like you can definitely fake this one till you make it, right? So this is what I would do. Don't use Great Gatsby. Find a book that's like, again, you want to make sure that all the parts of your essay are connected, right? So maybe there's an essay that, is kind of related to like something that you've experienced or is, adjacent to um a learning experience you had or like a philosophy that you have, right? Or something that you're passionate about or you really care about. Find a book that speaks to that and break that book down, right? Um, talk about that. Again, Google is your friend. You can literally look up books that, have this kind of theme. I would do that. Um, and yes, you can definitely read it this summer, right? Or like I said, if you're not a reader, right, you don't need to torture yourself. Um, look up people. There are a whole bunch of readers and bookies online who will break down books for you. So you can watch those, right? Or you can do audiobooks too. Like if you're not a reader, listen.
for sure, for sure. It doesn't have to be something you've read in high school because I totally get it. If you're like, there's nothing that I liked for my assignments, I just read them because I had to.
Right.
Look up things that you actually care about, things that, okay, maybe I'm not a fan of reading, but I love this topic. Let me see what audiobooks are out there.
Yeah, but definitely don't use a book that everyone else is going to use. Like stay away from your school's reading list. Find something unique. Find something that you think like a reader would be like, I never heard that book before. That's interesting. That's a great choice, right? Again, this is marketing yourself, right? Um, I personally wouldn't use ones, but you could use because those are on your school's list. And those have a lot of great themes and things that you can talk about. Um, but yeah, this is all about marketing yourself. So if you had, a billboard to use to market yourself that's concise, that shows all different parts of you, or that says like, hey, call this number if you want to donate and give me $5,000, what would you include on that billboard? Right. So think of it that way because you are basically saying like, hey, look at my application. I'm a great fit. So how is your application standing out from other people? So when you're choosing a book, right, do pick something profound, like pick something that is going to set you apart from other people. And when I say this, like this does not need to be like super academic at all, because there was a kid who got into an Ivy League talking about why they love chicken nuggets, like, so and when I say just needs to set you apart from the other application writers, like that's what I mean. Like it just has to set you apart. And remember, like Olga was saying earlier, you want your personality to show in your application.
Right? Anything else before we wrap up?
You are very welcome.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you at Enhanced Prep and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Good luck with your essays. You got this.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.